Welcome to the Digital Nomad Experts Podcast, brought to you by Beach Commute. Today, we're going to talk about our 3 tips to become a digital nomad ASAP. Before we do that, Marissa is on the line, and she has been to a witchy, ecstatic dance festival. Did I get that right?
It was just an ecstatic dance, and it was not a festival. It was just one event. But also, before we jump into that, the reason we're doing these 3 tips to become a nomad ASAP is because it is our 3-year anniversary of since we officially started Beach Commute. I think this was the day Diego and I had talked about it before, and we had colluded to say, like, we want to do this with Jeff. He had no idea about any of it. So today, 3 years ago, was the day that I called you and I said, Jeff, will you join forces with us?
I remember the phone call. You're like, hey, you want to do digital nomad stuff? I'm like, that sounds cool. Let's do it.
It was so fun. I remember exactly where I was too. I was at my friend's lake house, and so it's super exciting. So 3 years we've been at it, helping you, our wonderful listeners, get remote jobs and start traveling the world. And it's been a blast. And any other thoughts on our 3-year anniversary before we talk about our witchy weekends and your festival in Romania as well?
So we got 3 years with the company and then 2 years with the podcast. So we kind of the first year just forming it, putting it together, and then we just had, I don't know who came up with the idea of doing a podcast, but honestly, it's one of my favorite things of helping people because it seems to be where we get the most feedback from people. And it's also been those really weird instances where you run into people and they're like, I know your voice. I've had that, I think, twice now, and I think you've had it twice now too. And it's really
so bizarre.
But it's kind of eerie, but at the same time, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, Like, you've been having people listen to you and learning stuff from, hopefully learning stuff from the things that we talk about in the podcast.
Hopefully you've learned something in these 100+ episodes later. But yeah, sometimes, again, hopefully you feel if you're listening to this, but Jeff, Diego, and I genuinely love recording these episodes. It is so much fun. And we have so much fun. I think sometimes it's hard to remember that there's, you actually get to listen because we don't always get to interact with you. So if you ever get anything from this podcast, feel free to send us an email. We do get emails, or if we run into you on the streets in our travels, please do say something, talk to us. We really love it because it keeps us going, and it helps us realize, we know there's other people on the end there theoretically, but it's so fun to hear from you and not only talk to each other. That we love that too.
You kind of forget because we're just talking to each other, and then it just gets published and you're not actually interacting with the people, but there are thousands of people that actually listen to this and have us in in their ears for an hour at a time, which is such a cool thing. We love it. We really, really appreciate all of our listeners.
Yes, and we love you, our listeners, and it's so fun when you do reach out and we hear from you. So again, no pressure to you, but if you ever feel like it, we love it. So with that, drum roll for our 3-year anniversary. Very excited. So weekend-wise, I'm going to let you start, actually, Jeff. Tell us, so you're in Romania. I think I talked to Diego yesterday. He said he saw you briefly, but also you've been at a festival this weekend. So fill us in on where you are, what you're doing.
Yeah, actually came back to, I mean, as much as I love Romania, and I'm always making your ears bleed on that, I came back here because there is a festival. It's called the Electric Castle Festival. And it actually is a castle that they light up with a bunch of lights. It looks like a giant electric castle. And there's a bunch of bands here that we wanted to see. And I've never really, I'm not really a festival person, to be honest with you. It's it never really, that kind of vibe isn't exactly
even
my
in your
thing.
Younger years.
Not really.
If you had some wild younger years, you would have been a festival goer.
It would still just kind of true. First half of that statement, 100% true.
You were wild.
I had some colorful years for a while there, but it just wasn't in the festival kind of way. It just didn't appeal to me. So I usually just was kind of a no on these types of things. But this one this one for whatever reason just kind of called to me. And I said, let's give it a shot.
Because you just love Romania so much.
That was a big selling point. I got to be honest with you. Yeah. And then, so we went, and it was nothing like I expected. I kind of thought it would be, tents set up and kind of crowded elbow to elbow. But as a matter of fact, this place was enormous, and it was set up with activities all over the place. There's people playing soccer, badminton, volleyball, ping pong. There was entire areas of just these food trucks, and then special beer trucks with 30 different types of beer in it. It was
so you loved that.
It was so over the top in the extra non-band related stuff. that it was
right.
really,
Was it
really
like
cool.
a camping festival? Were people camping there?
Some people did, yeah. There's like
Okay.
a section outside of it where there's a bunch of, you can buy these like glamping tents, I guess is what you'd call it. It's
Right.
like a little bit more than a tent type of situation.
Right.
But most people just, they took buses in. So you'd go, it was really, really well organized. You'd go to the mall and there'd just be this big ass line of buses. You buy a bus ticket and they just like usher you onto the bus. And then when you want to leave, there's a bus waiting for you. And it was like,
Interesting.
yeah, it was pretty well done. So I don't know if festivals are typically like that. I kind of feel like they're not, especially not like the ones that were described to me in my hometown. It seemed like kind of dirty, grungy, people starting to smell after a couple days type of situation.
Right.
But it wasn't anything like that. It was actually, it was really nice. You just kind of leave when you want, come and go as you want, that type of thing. So
Interesting.
it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've been, I'm thinking now, to a music festival like that in any of my travels, like in a different country. But I did just go, I don't think we ever talked about on podcast, like a month ago, I went to a local Burning Man in Tennessee. Maybe we talked about it. I can't remember.
Outside
but
the
it
podcast.
was what you're talking about. Yeah, of like all the tents and just like no showers for days and all the things. But
You dig it?
it actually wasn't my favorite. I think, it was... I don't know, maybe it was like just because it was the Tennessee version weren't quite my people. There's a feel to that. I think maybe the normal Burning Man might be more appealing. I don't know, but it wasn't my favorite of experiences. And then this weekend I had this like moment. So I'm back home in the States, as we know. And I've done so I don't know if anyone's never done a static dance. Do you know anything about it, Jeff? Does that mean anything?
No, but I can't wait.
So basically, it's like, I don't even know quite how to explain it. It's a freeform dance. Like, there's no way to do it right or wrong. You just go. It's almost a very, like, kind of tribal music. Like, it can be hundreds of people or a smaller event where it's just music it could be, 1-2 hours. And it's usually, like, really great DJs. And you just dance. You just, like, move your body in weird ways and, like, whatever wants to come out. And
This is your moment.
Like,
we're on video now. Don't let us down.
And I'm trying not to move.
How ecstatic are we talking?
It can be very ecstatic. Very, very ecstatic to the point where it's like, you try, you don't really, it's not about anyone else, you don't judge, but sometimes look around, I'm like, these people are feeling it, and I love that for them. I'm still kind of like getting my way into it, and then you sort of realize, like, no one's watching you, it doesn't matter, you just let go, but it is a way to sort of like move energy through your body, to like let things go, to release. It's like sort of meditation at the end, but I've done these like in Bali and Thailand and Mexico, like places kind of all around the world. And to me, it was this cool moment where I don't think I ever would have found that had I never left the States and traveled. I didn't know it existed in Atlanta. And I was back here and my friend was like, yeah, like there's this whole community here who does that. And so it was a really neat experience to go. I think there was 300 people at this event, and it was like all the type of people, that you would meet that I would meet traveling. And I was like, all these people are here. Like, there's people in my home city who have found this sort of thing. And so it was just a really cool moment that I just kind of had this download where I was like, I had to go away and travel to learn, explore, and find the things, only to come back and realize, like, this stuff exists here too, which was cool. But when you asked me about a witchy thing, it was funny. I was leaving I was like walking back to my car afterwards, and there was this guy who was kind of like dressed in cargo shorts and a t-shirt and was like, have you been to this before? And I was like, well, it's my first one here. And he was like, I normally just am like a witch alone in my house. Like, I'm solo. I never go anywhere. And then I found this. And he was like, there's all these other like witchy people here. And I was just laughing so hard because I was like, I hadn't thought about it as like a witchy thing necessarily. But there was this guy who he found his witchy people in Atlanta too. So anyway, that's my story. And we can jump into.
He found his tribe. Good for him.
He found his tribe.
Did you think of us everywhere when he mentioned the witchy stuff?
100%. I was like,
I knew it.
100%. I was like, I didn't even know it was a witch event, but Jeff will love this. So,
stuff you get when you travel. My God.
It was fun. So with that, hopefully that's a good intro of where we are, what we're doing. Jeff's in Romania. Diego's actually, well, he just left Romania. I think he's in Spain now, but you got to overlap with him there for like a day and see him, right?
Yep. We had a couple hours, over caffeinated. I think we drank like 2 coffees on top of the 2 coffees on top of the 2 coffees. And yeah, we caught up on everything. It's so good. It's been 2 years actually since I've seen him in person, and it was in Romania.
Yeah.
It was actually.
I think that was the last time I saw. Well, I saw Diego since then, but that was the last time I saw you. I think, right?
The country that unites.
The country that unites.
Or not.
Who would have thought we would always just meet up in Romania? So with this, Jeff and I each did, if you've listened to our episodes in the past, sometimes we'll each do our own ideas of this, compare and contrast, because you guys know we usually have very different opinions on things, different ideas about things, so we like to see if we agree or disagree. So with that, we wanted to each write our own 3 tips for you to become a digital nomad ASAP of just what needs to get done. I have no idea what Jeff wrote. He has no idea what I wrote. So
there might be overlap.
Hopefully there is, but if not, then you get six amazing tips. So Jeff, what is your number one of someone's thinking about becoming a digital nomad, they're not yet, what is the first tip that they need to know or do?
The first one is what I did. I was really, really happy with how it worked out was negotiating for a 4-week trial run with my boss.
Love it.
Yeah. Because I didn't have to, first off, from an employment perspective, it's kind of low risks for them. If you just say, hey, I'm just going to do a month and then let's just gauge productivity and see if this thing works. I'll show you that I'm going to be, we've talked about this before, being super responsive. When you first get into this thing, just over communicating everything, saying, hey, I'm going to be available during normal business hours or whatever it is that you negotiate, right? And I'm going to get all my work done, and it's just going to be a month. And you get that from an employment perspective. They see that, your employer goes, oh, okay, that's kind of low risk, and it's going to keep my employee happy. Probably something I should go with. It's hard for them to say no to that unless it is a job that you actually have to be in person. Then you're not going to be able to pull it off. But if you are, working online, it's a pretty good standpoint to take. And the second thing is for you. You're not exactly sure at this point if you're going to love this life, and you might be a little bit nervous, thinking, do I want to sell all my stuff? Do I want to give up my lease? Do I want to turn my entire life upside down to do this thing? Well, you don't necessarily have to. And I didn't do that. I just said, okay, I'm going to do 1 month in Medellin. And if I really, really like it, I'll just take the next step from there. I'm not even worried about what the next step is yet, because I'm so far away from that let me just process this first month, see how it works for me, see how it works for Brafton, and then I'll go from there afterwards, and I'll figure out the rest as just kind of details based on how this first month goes. So it's kind of a low risk approach for you, and it's a low risk approach for your employer. Everything, worst case scenario, everything doesn't work out. It's you spent some money on accommodations, you spent some money on travel, and then, no big loss. So I was one of the few things I've done in the digital nomad life where I nailed it the first time, and I'm happy with it, and I'm happy to share that with people. So do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I do have thoughts, and I love it because it's different than what I said. So I love that it's just coming from different opinions. But this is a great one, and I think, as you said, it's also a test for you. So my version of that, and I already could work remotely, so it's a little bit different. But I did it for 4 months to start, and just rented out my place and then came home because I said, I might do this for 4 months and hate it, or just be all right, all my travel bugs were ticked and I'm done and I don't have to, I don't think that's a phrase. My boxes were ticked. My travel bug was taken care of, squashed, whatever you want to call it.
Squash and travel
bugs were ticked. So you'll either do it for a month and be well, that was cool, but it's fine. That was that, I'm done. And then you don't have to uproot your life, like Jeff said, or you do it and you're well, now I must do this forever. And then you figure it out. But I love that you said, this will get into mine, I won't yet, but just kind of thinking about it one step at a time of you don't have to uproot your whole life and sell everything and travel around the world for a whole entire year to every continent. Just give it that trial. And like you said, bosses are more likely to give you that short time where you're not saying, can I do this forever? It's hey, can I just do this 4-week thing? And one example, the first thing that came to mind as you were saying that, when I was in Sri Lanka earlier this year, back in March and April, there was a girl there, she was from Israel, she was a friend of my friend, who did exactly that. She had permission from her employer to spend 4 weeks away. She chose to go to Sri Lanka from Israel. It wasn't that crazy of a time zone change. And she loved it. And I remember I was talking to her and I was are you going to keep going? And she said, my employer will only give me 4 weeks. I have to go back. There was no option, but at least she experienced it. And as I talked to her, the coach in me can't help myself. And I said, I was well, do you love your job? She was yes. I really love the job. I really love the company. I don't want to leave it. And I said, which is more important to you, traveling like this or your company? And she just was speechless.
Easy way to put it.
My friend was like,
Well.
Yeah, my friend was like, this is why I always talk to Marissa about like these life things. Because when you put it that way, she was like, oh, yeah. Because in her mind, she was like, I don't want to leave my employer. It's great. But then when you put yourself first and realize like I can travel the world, maybe I find an employer that I like 10% less, but like I'm living this epic life. So anyway, give it that trial, give it a place, and your employer, is likely, not that they will 100% say yes, but it's more of a possibility to say, like, yeah, just do this once in the year. And at the very least, you've lived a month in another country that you wouldn't have done. So yeah. I love this, Jeff, as a good little first step.
Okay, what's yours?
Okay, mine's a little more airy here. But this first one, and I think it's so important, is believe it's possible for you. I know it sounds super cliche. It's not like as tactical as a tip of Jeff is saying, like, ask your employer for 4 weeks. But in order to become a digital nomad, you have to believe that it's possible for you. And we know from all of you, just, maybe not every single person, but so many of our listeners, so many people I've coached, so many people that I talk to day in and day out, they're like, oh, that digital nomad, that sounds nice. Wouldn't it be nice to travel? I wish I could live your life. And, when I was younger and back in the day, I used to be like, you can do this and do that. People have to be ready for the change. But now I just say, like, you can, period, point blank. And if someone, these are the people who are not our beach commuters who will have all the excuses of reasons why. And I don't try to argue with those people anymore. But if you're here and you're listening, we hope that it's possible for you. Like, there is a way, and you can get a remote job. There are ways to make remote income, no matter the skill sets you have, no matter your background, no matter, we hear people like, I think I'm too young to be a digital nomad. I think I'm too old to be a digital nomad. We've met people in their 50s and 60s and beyond. We've met people, some of our friends are, in their early 20s, right out of college when they first became like straight out of college. So you may have, I encourage you to write down all the beliefs, all the stories that you have. That's what I like to say as a coach of why you can't be a nomad. Is it your skills, your job, your career, your family, your pet, your this, your that, the other. And I'll talk about some other things for number 2, but like, you just have to know, if you are listening, like, this is possible for you. It's not just like lucky people around the world who like had a fairy godmother who gifted them money and they got to travel. Like, there are ways to make it happen. So you got to believe as a first step, or you will never do it. So any thoughts on that, Jeff?
Well, you said it's not practical advice, but it is practical advice. I wouldn't have gone to, it's kind of the step before my step.
I was thinking tactical. Oh. It wasn't like a tactical.
Well, it's not like a
practical. Yes, tactical.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I definitely wouldn't have taken the step that I took had I not actually gone through that mental process as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot more attainable when you see it in like small little bites. Like we were talking about, just doing the maybe 2 to 4 week type of thing. That feels a lot more attainable. It doesn't seem like some really obscure lifestyle that's just beyond reach, but if you just take tiny little steps, get the income, however you're going to get that. We've talked about that tons of ways on this podcast. And then just get that little trial period. Then it's all of a sudden it feels doable. It's like when you buy a plane ticket, it's like, it didn't seem doable until you bought that plane ticket. And now you've got that plane ticket, you kind of didn't have a choice, and you're already one step further, you're another step further, and you just keep on going until you actually get there.
Yeah.
Number 2 is, again, mine are going to lean towards tactical. Surprise, surprise.
This is good. You're tactical. I'm like up in the air.
It's good because it requires both.
You get all the best advice.
Yeah, it requires both to get you to the place where you need to be. So my second one is choosing a location that's going to be easy for you. That also has a community. So a lot of stuff goes into that. So you're going to have to consider choosing an easy time zone. Like right off the bat, I would probably not choose something that's a lot of time zones away. If you're doing this trial run, assume that we're just going through chronologically, doing a trial run, and all of a sudden you're jumping ahead 12 hours. Like that might be a little stressful, and you might be put off of the digital nomad life. And you didn't have to be put off of it. Your first impression of it, if it's not good, you might abandon it on accident. You might have abandoned it without a good reason too. So like choosing a good location, choosing a place that's relatively affordable. I can't stress this next one enough, is choosing a place that has community. I think it's so important. I mean, I loved traveling before I was a digital nomad, but it was really the community that kept bringing me back. Like I joined the Wi-Fi tribe because I traveled on my own and I hated it. You know, I had nobody to share all these awesome experiences with. And there are so many awesome experiences that you could share with people. Absolutely crucial. Join a community. We've got a great podcast on how to find lifelong digital friends in digital nomad communities. I don't recall the number. I think it was a few months back. But we got some great information in that one. We've got Diego founded Wi-Fi Tribe, which is, that's how I got my start. And that's how I found my first community. And it seems like everybody I know in the world now is somehow Wi-Fi Tribe adjacent. It's like the 6 degrees 100%. of Kevin Bacon, like somehow you'll find a connection to a Wi-Fi tribe at some point. I guess the last consideration with picking an easy location would be maybe language that you're a little bit more comfortable with, or at least something that you're able to easily translate and you're able to navigate around, order food, use transit, that kind of thing. So you're just not overly stimulated all the time. There's just way too much stuff. So I guess the theme of this one is just choose a place that's somewhat easy and comfortable for you, and you're not just maxing yourself out on that first round.
I love that. I think the first part is so important of having that location that's easy time zone. But I think on top of that, if you don't go in your first time with to find a community or jump into a community of some sort, you might not like nomad life, because otherwise it does take time to sort of build your network and people. And I think if you just go alone for that first month, unless you're someone who, if you know yourself in and out and you were like, I want to be alone, we have some friends who, even if they're doing a Wi-Fi tribe chapters, will disappear and only spend time with locals and just meet people.
Side mission.
Because that's just who they
video
are.
Game side missions. Yeah, they just disappear for a while.
I don't know that video game, but otherwise, I would totally recommend joining just pick one Wi-Fi tribe chapter and join it and do that for the month. Or like you said, I was just trying to search, I can't find the number, but I think the episode was 10 communities to find lifelong digital nomad friends or something like that. So if you want to go back and search that, I think, it will make or break your experience if you have people like that to share it with, and to have it just the moment you jump in is so fun. So I love that for your number 2. Mine was still, I feel like you're all right, now you're already nomadic. Mine's a step backwards too. And you actually kind of mentioned this before, but it's just breaking down the next steps into really small steps. So if you're thinking I'm not yet a nomad and I, need or want to be a nomad, it can feel really overwhelming of how do I do it? What do I do? What career am I doing? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I'm going to be lonely. What about my healthcare? It's your thoughts will stop you 100 steps ahead before you've even gotten there. So again, this is the coach in me. What I would have you do is break it down into really itty bitty little steps. This is something I would do, even if you're working on a big project for work. If you're I need to finish this giant thing, it feels overwhelming. But if you're okay, first I need to write an outline, and second I need to write out these things, and third I need to talk to this person. Really break it down for yourself. So just the first examples I have is this is a lot of what we help you with at Beach Commute, but it's figure out, one of the biggest mistakes I see, it's people don't even know what remote career they want to do, and you're just applying to 100 things and it feels overwhelming. So really figure out what career you want to pursue, what you're going to do. Maybe you already have permission to just ask your own company, like we said, but if not, just get crystal clear on that. Fix your resume for that. And the next step would be reach out to 10 people each week in these type of companies. Give notice to your, lease that you're going to give up your apartment or rent it out or whatever it's going to be. So just break it down into really tiny chunks and just focus one step at a time. Don't focus on step 10. Just say, all right, this week is task number 1. Next week is task number 2. Next week is task number 3. And it's going to become more feasible, and you're actually going to make all this progress along the way. Well,
what you're saying is an amazing tip, and there's also a lot of science behind that, because when you do that, every time you knock off something tiny on the list, you get a little dopamine. You get a dopamine hit. You actually get some pleasure chemicals going through your brain, and it fuels you and it motivates you to get the next one. It's just this virtuous cycle where you keep doing positive things, and it keeps propelling you forward. But it only works if you're you can't jump up the ladder. You have to every single step of the way.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if I have just done something, I'll write it down on my list and then cross it off immediately. Actually, I don't know if you realize this, but actually, the writing down lists on paper, I would totally recommend that. You actually showed me that back in Bolivia. That's still how I do my schedule. I don't use Asana. I don't use Trello. I don't use anything. I write stuff down on a list because it's satisfying, and it's like it actually creates some degree of, like, you get the dopamine hit for sure, but some degree of closure with that task every single time I scratch something off the list.
Feels so good to like literally scratch it off.
Yeah, and I don't just scratch it off. I like blur that sucker out. Like there's no daylight in that thing left. Like that
is so funny.
Yeah. And that's the same exact concept with becoming a digital nomad. Just if you want to, just write out an actual list of things that you need to get done. Like, okay, negotiate with boss, pick a new place, yada, 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 and just do one thing. And it could be as simple as research locations I like. That's a job. And it's a fun job,
And even break it down smaller. So you say, like, negotiate with boss. It'd be like, send him an email to have a conversation, right? Research how to negotiate. Like, break it down into these smaller things. Totally. And I love, it's funny you said that. I forgot. I'm honored that you used my method all the way from Bolivia so many years ago. Yeah. It is so effective. I think when I was teaching you that, I was big into writing those at the time too, especially the night before, like write it for the next day. But I, like you had said, I would be like, wake up, brush teeth, like eat breakfast. I'd be like, check. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so good at my day already. So yeah, give yourself that hit, break it down into really small steps, and it feels good. And don't get too far ahead, and do the things that you know you have control over, right? If you just say like, get remote job, well, it's like, holy shit, like that's a lot to do. Like, we have stuff to help you with that. That's why we're here. But when you break it down into these smaller chunks, get a coach, get someone to help you, get a friend, get something to keep you accountable to like talk about those steps. And we'll be launching some programs soon for you guys to help you even more. Hint. We'll talk about it soon. But yeah, it's possible. Do it in small chunks, break down the tasks, choose an easy place. Those are our first 4. And before we move on to our last 2 tips, if you're listening to this episode and are getting value from it, or any of our past episodes as well, if you could give whatever, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are, the little like, follow, subscribe,
whatever
stars.
they're doing.
I feel like it's different.
It's changing,
whatever they're doing
it's
these
changing
days.
every month, I know.
But we're so grateful. It really does help people find the podcast and reach more people, and it keeps on growing, and we're so grateful for that. So, yeah. All right, Jeff, what is your final tip for number 3?
My last tip is after you go on your first trip, which it probably didn't make much sense initially, but I think it's actually part of becoming a digital nomad. Last tip is recapping with your employer of how it went. Not just like, not just, going, coming back and saying, oh, that was cool. No, I mean like sitting down and talking with your boss for half an hour, or whatever, and say, how did you feel about my productivity? How did you feel about my communicativeness? Like, how did you feel about all my availability? The time zone, if there was any gap in time zones, whatever, and just unpacking all of that. And if your employer had any red flags, address them right there. Because if you are serious about becoming a digital nomad, you're going to have the big negotiation where you're saying, hey, I want to do this a lot more. Like, I want to do this for months, or I want to do this even full time. If you really, really love it and you feel like you want to jump those few steps that we were talking about and be like, all right, I'm getting rid of my lease. I'm full in on this lifestyle. You're going to have that conversation. This is applying, of course, to people that have a current employer. But if you do, and I think most people do that are entering as a digital nomad, I think you should have that debrief conversation. I did with my boss. I said, hey, how did it go? Was everything all right? Awesome. I'm thinking about doing this again. What are your feelings on it? And are there any concerns that I can address right now so that we don't have anything lingering in the future? Just want to make sure that you are fully comfortable with this. I want to know like what areas you're not comfortable with. We can address it, or we could say, this is part of the deal. I don't go across certain time zones or whatever. It's basically just really, really good communication at the end. So this sets you up in such a very good position that you can start working on the stuff that you need to do yourself, and all of your employment stuff is covered to literally become a digital nomad.
I love that communication. It's funny. I feel like you're like, no, you're already nomadic. You've come back and now communicate so you can keep going. But one tip, as you were saying that, Jeff, with that level of communication, I think some good questions to ask even before you go to your boss are like, what concerns do you have before I go? Are you worried that the time zone's not going to be right? Are you worried I'm not going to have solid Wi-Fi? Are you worried I'm going to not be available at a time when you need me? And you can address those beforehand so that you're like, all right, this person's concerned I'm not going to be on Slack when she needs me. Like, I'm going to be on Slack all the time or whatever it is. Or, you're worried you're not going to reach me. Hey, I promise my cell phone's going to work the same way. Call me anytime. Promise it's fine. Day or night, I'm going to be more available, whatever it is, right? And then when you come back, like Jeff said, it's like, hey, did I do okay on these things? Was there anything that worked, didn't work that you didn't even know would be a problem? So I love that, because that's going to help you to then say, okay, cool. Like, this went well. Would it be okay if I do this, again, once a quarter? Or can I do this full time? Or can I do another trial the next half of the year for 3 months or whatever that is? So that's a great way to sort of like get that feedback first, address anything, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, give them no reason to say no to you.
Yeah, and even with that, like, there are some companies that will no matter how well you do, like, I still recommend doing that, because maybe you still were at the job and you had continuity, continuity in what you were doing, and you got the nomad experience, but you might come back and they might say, hey, it was great, and our policy is still like, you can't be a nomad, like, you can't travel, and that's just who we are and what we do. And then that's what I said to that girl in Sri Lanka, which was like, okay, cool, now which is more important to you? And it's okay to say, this job is more important, maybe travel's not. You get to choose your priorities. And that's, what I do as a coach, is help people figure out, like, what do you really value? Is this job and this company and this career more important? Or are you just too scared, and maybe you could find something else that's just as good or close or better, and you get to travel? So you get to make that decision once you come to it and see if you even liked that experience. So that's why I love Jeff's approach to this, and then mine's more of like the long-term view of like, how do you really get that full-time remote job that you can keep doing no matter what? So so for mine, once you've believed it's possible, you've broken down all the steps, you're following them, you've got the remote job and all of that, my last tip to become a nomad ASAP is, you kind of mentioned this before, it's like, buy the plane ticket. Just like book a date and just go. There is always a reason, a date, an event, something that you'll say like, oh, I cannot tell you how many people are like, oh, I think I'll just do that like a year from now. Like, I think I'll just do that when this happens. Oh, but then like, I think I was ready to book a flight, or I was going to do my first Wi-Fi chapter in Vietnam. And then my friend had gotten engaged. It was one of my best friends from high school, and they got married. They got set their date like way sooner than I thought they would, and it was like right during that first time. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stay for that wedding, and I think I skipped Vietnam and I started like in Indonesia a month later instead. But once I had that, I was like, all right, this is a date. I think I missed like 2 other weddings during that, and something else. I came back for one at the very end in December. But yeah, it's like there's gonna be things that come up. I had a cat. I found someone to watch him. I had a condo that wasn't really rentable, and I sort of just
forgot about
HOA
that.
rules.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh man, I used to do all sorts of. I think I told them, I was like, so I just have this cat sitter, and they'll be like, it was super, and I think I actually got a letter from them midway through that was like, we realize you are renting your condo out. This is not okay. Like, we're not going to kick them out, but like, you cannot do this again.
Oh no.
But it's kind of like, ask for forgiveness later. They didn't kick me out. I didn't have to like sell my condo. But my point is, there was a million things that could have stopped me. And I was like, you know what? I booked my flight like 3 months in advance. I've never done that before. And, or since then, but for that first time, I was like, this is gonna, don't ever actually do that unless it's your first time and it's gonna get you going. But the point is, like, I had to do that for myself, and I put the deposit down for Wi-Fi Tribe. That probably would have been enough. I didn't know at the time. I could have booked my flight way later. But the point is, like, I had that date in my mind. So I joined Wi-Fi Tribe in January, and I think I left in September. And I had that time in between where I was like, I'm getting like a little bit more income, working on some stuff for my business. I'm going to figure out my cap, my condo, my tenant, my this, my that. Like, and I think it was a couple weeks before until most of it fell into place. And it's kind of, I forget what's the principle. It's like however much time you have is like how much time it will take to make it happen. So it's not Pareto. I forget the name of it, but
you always nail these.
Whichever it. I always
sayings.
nail it.
I'm
There's
gonna
some
get you a book of
principle. I just need to start like an email list of like all my sayings. I'm gonna do that one day. But yeah, the point is just like set that date for yourself. Set it in stone. Do not change it. And like when it comes, just do it. Like you just have to go. And otherwise, there's always a million excuses why you won't otherwise. So yeah, that's my last one.
It's a great one, and I think people underestimate the power the power of buying a plane ticket. Like, and I've watched you do it. You struggle buying those plane tickets because you know
I hate
when
it.
you buy it, you're in. Like, that's it. Like,
yeah.
Like, well, sure, you might have that 24-hour refund, or you might not. Depends on the airline. But like, for the most part, you're in, and you're committed to it.
Oh my gosh.
Which is,
yeah.
I can see you getting nervous already just talking about it.
Oh my God.
But do it.
I have to. Yeah, it's so hard.
And then everything after
and
that,
the
you just work
ticket.
out, right?
Yeah, you will figure it out. You'll find a place to stay. You can work out all the details later, but just like lock yourself in. And even if it's not with the plane ticket, like speak it out loud. Tell your friends, tell your family, like I am going on this date. Like this is when I'm leaving. This is what I'm doing. Put it in your calendar. Find the things. Tell your apartment. Tell your whatever. Find someone to rent or lease or whatever it might be, and you just got to go do it and try it. It doesn't mean you have to stay forever. Like we said, this doesn't mean like, some people will be like, I'm just going to, sell everything I own and backpack around the world for a year. Like this is different. You still have your job and your income, and give it a trial run. You can always come back. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever. But just like book that first trial, whether it's 4 weeks, like Jeff said, or 4 months or 2 months or whatever it is for you, just like give it a try, because you'll never know until you do it. And then once you've done it, it's like with anything, if you have a work task and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be so bad, it's overwhelming, and then you do it for 5 minutes, you're like, oh, this actually is only going to take me 30 minutes. It's the same sort of thing with Nomad life. If you just sort of like book it and do it, it's like all the things you thought were so hard, you're going to figure out. And the next time you're like, okay, this, like now I know what I'm doing. This wasn't like, I can do it again. You just kind of prove to yourself that you can.
Yeah. I love that. Just buy the plane ticket. That's my favorite out of all 6 of these things. Just buy a plane ticket. Because it just commits you to do it. And I know so many people get stuck right on the ledge there. And guess what?
We hate commitment.
That's the shove. That's the shove.
It is. And then you'll realize further in Nomad life. It's funny. I'm like, for the first time, just book the plane ticket ahead of time. And then every other time, like, book everything as last minute as you can, so you're not locked into anything and you keep yourself open. But that's once you're in Nomad life.
One-way tickets.
One-way tickets. Book your one-way ticket. Even for your first trial, I would say. Yeah, because maybe you'll get to stay. Maybe you can go longer. Maybe you'll meet someone else.
I almost recommended that as one of my 3, but I was like, no, I did nothing but talk about that. Me, you, and Diego on our 100-year anniversary, 100 podcast anniversary, whatever it is.
We've been digital nomads for 100 years at this point, but I think we have. We always joke like this is the other cool thing. Yeah, Nomad time. It's unrelated to this, but it's so important to say, like, 1 month of Nomad time is like literally 10 years of life. I really truly believe that. It's like dog years, but more, because you have so much experience and like so many new things that you're taking in at all times when you're a nomad, and it's such a full life to live. Yeah. So yeah, we've now been digital nomads for at least 100 years combined. Minimum 100 years and 100 episodes and 3 actual annual years later of Beach Commute. So we hope that you enjoyed our 3-year anniversary literally today as we're recording this, and we're so grateful for each one of you here at Beach Commute because you allow us to keep doing this. We hope it's helpful. And if you haven't already joined our email list, check out beachcommute.com/email. You'll join our list. We send out 2 remote job listings that are hiring that day, that week. Every single week we send those out. And we also send info about the podcast and any other masterclasses, programs we're launching. We've got some really exciting stuff in the pipeline to help you get remote jobs and actually start traveling. So definitely join that. And other than that, I guess we'll see you back next week.
See you next week.